get the electronic one from the office. That will embarrass me.
Are you meeting then, or is it? Yeah, I'll meet for sure. That's good. And then if you just tag us. Yeah, I mean, we just gotta. Stuff, so I'll make notes. I'll make a schedule for when is the. Yeah, I've asked Mike Bradley about that. Say yes? Did he say? No, he's not. He's going up to Norman. Well, yeah, at short notice. But when you agree to this together, you can say, we're gonna meet
So good morning, everybody. It's like there's like this lovely, light in here that I was looking for an adjective, but how would you describe this light? Ambiance. Ambiance. There's a wonderful ambiance in here. So for those of you in the room and on YouTube, welcome to the Unitarian Church of Lincoln. I'm Judy Hart, a member of the Board of Trustees. I want to offer a special welcome to those of you who are visiting for the first time. You'll hear that again probably from Amy. I hope that you'll join us for coffee and conversation in the gallery following the service. Reporting back from the spring congregational meeting last Sunday, oh my gosh. Yeah, it feels like a year. This week has felt like a year. All measures passed. Woot. We amended our Articles of Incorporation and adopted the 8th principle. I'll talk a little bit more about that during the service. We have 3 new Board of Trustees members and a new Program Council chair. I think that's worth a round of applause. Next Sunday is the June Share the Plate. We'll be joined by Trey Coley-Lusk from Nebraska Religious Coalition for Reproductive Freedom, and we'll hear about their life-saving work. Over the summer, we will welcome home our minister, Oscar Sinclair, with a picnic in the air-conditioned shelter at Antelope Park. Yeah. We'll have a gathering in Omaha to continue our growing congregational relationship with First and Second Unitarian. That's on July 8th. And Justice in Action will have a celebration on June 15th. So keep an eye out for the details in the e-blasts and newsletters where we'll share all of the details, and hopefully you'll be able to join us. So I'll get out of the way and we'll have another moment of contemplation before the service begins. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Amy Miller. I'll be your worship associate for this morning. Our worship leader, Bob Fusen, has chosen opening words by a contemporary American poet, novelist, and environmental activist, Silas House, who, I will note, is from Kentucky, just like Bob. Joy is come to the little everywhere, pink to the peach and pink to the apple, white to the pear. Stars are come to the dogwood, astral, pale. Mists are pink on the redbud, veil after veil. Flutes for the feathery locusts, soft as spray. Tongues of the lovers for chestnuts, poplars, babbling May. Yellow plumes for the willow's wind-blown hair, oak trees and sycamores only, comfortless and bare. Sore from the steel and the watching, somber and old, wooing robes for the beeches, larches splashed with gold. Breath of love to the lilac, warm with noon, great hearts cold when the little beat mad so soon. What is their faith to bear it till it come, waiting with rain cloud and swallow, frozen and dumb?
Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Church of Lincoln this Sunday morning. My name is Dr. Bob Fusen. I am joined here on the chancel by our worship associate, Amy Miller, who so deftly introduced herself, and Silas House. Our settled minister, the Reverend Oscar Sinclair, is on sabbatical for just a few more weeks over in jolly old England. Over the last several years, the way we have met has often changed, but whether in person, on Zoom, or on a YouTube live stream, or some way of being that we cannot even yet imagine, worship together is a change to deepen our connection with the sources of meaning in our lives and to proclaim who we are and what we are about, throwing open the doors of the congregation and proclaiming the radical love and welcome that is the heart of our faith. The Unitarian Church of Lincoln aspires to be a loving community, uniting reason with spiritual exploration, to transform ourselves and the world. A few notes before we begin. One thing about the hymns today is you'll notice that we are absent Mr. Bill Carpenter. Bill is in New Mexico with some family. So our hymns today are going to be introduced and led by some of my colleagues around the UUA on video. So we invite you to rise in body and spirit and sing with those videos. They may not come out and say, rise in body and spirit and sing with me. So feel free to do so. It's a service about creativity after all. The other thing I want to mention is if you can, please move to the center of these aisles, because as people come in, it can be hard to find a seat, especially in this particular setup. It is my great pleasure to introduce our board president, Judy Hart, who's going to talk to you about our adoption of the eighth principle. Welcome to this loving community, and may we in our gathering here be about the work of transforming ourselves and our world.
Thanks, Bob. We did it. Yeah. We adopted an eighth principle to add to the 7 principles that are our guiding force. If you never noticed it, but our principles are located over here on this wall. It's framed. Sometimes we tend not to look at framed items, but now we have to get a new poster. So, which is probably wasn't in the budget, so we'll figure that one out. So this eighth principle asks us to journey towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community through our actions to dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. The vote happened last week, but the process has taken us more than 6 years, maybe even 150 years. I think it's been our destiny since we became a faith community here in Lincoln. But specifically, this targeted focus to accept the principle began in 2017, following the Unitarian Universalist General Assembly. After the assembly, our Board of Trustees appointed a task force for dismantling white supremacy here at our church. The task force began by educating itself and asking a lot of questions, and then reaching out to our entire community with a survey to find out what other members and friends thought or understood about racism and white supremacy. Do you all remember who in this room took that survey? Yeah, probably about maybe a quarter of the people in this room now took the survey. What followed was more than 50 of our own people participating in beloved conversations during a global pandemic. Black Lives Matter, political tensions, murders, they were all the backdrop for our small and large group meetings. Sermons, discussions, a summer of Indigenous programming, and all kinds of personal transformations have added up to our embracing one more way to help us make sense of the world. So adopting the eighth principle is one more accomplishment in our journey of creating the beloved community as we continue to become the church that we want to be. So I just want to thank everybody who has put time to change yourself and time to change this community in over all these years. So thank you so much, and congratulations, everybody. It's great to celebrate something in this crazy time. So thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Please rise in body and/or in
When
spirit.
I think of a river, I think
for
of
our
the
hymn.
fact that no matter what, it just keeps going. I hope you'll sing Peace Like a River with me. If you don't know it, I think you'll pick it up really quickly. It goes like this. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean. I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got pain like an arrow. I've got pain like an arrow. I've got pain like an arrow. I've got pain like an arrow in my soul. I've got pain like an arrow. I've got pain like an arrow. I've got pain like an arrow in my soul. I've got tears like the raindrops. I've got tears like the raindrops. I've got tears like the raindrops. I've got tears like the raindrops in my soul. I've got tears like the raindrops. I've got tears like the raindrops. I've got tears like the raindrops in my soul. I've got strength like the mountain. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain in my soul. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain. I've got strength like a mountain in my soul. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. Thank you, everyone.
If anyone would like to come forward for the story, you're welcome to do so now, or you can stay in your seats. Our story today is called The Girl Who Never Made Mistakes by Gary Rubenstein and Mark Pett. For Beatrice Bottomwell, Friday began like any other day. She matched her socks, and of course she put her shoes on their proper feet. She remembered to feed her hamster, Humbert, his favorite food, broccoli. And when she made a sandwich for her brother Carl's lunch, she used exactly the same amount of peanut butter as jelly. And when she stepped outside to greet her fans, she didn't forget to say good morning and thank you. They asked if she had made her bed. She had. They asked if she forgot to do her math homework. Nope. What about tonight's talent show? They asked. I'm ready, said Beatrice with a smile. After all, her juggling act had won 3 years in a row. Most people in town didn't even know Beatrice's name. They just called her the girl who never made mistakes. Because for as long as anyone could remember, she never did. Unlike Beatrice, Carl made lots of mistakes. He ate his crayons and drew with green beans. He danced with his hands and played the piano with his feet. Carl loved to make mistakes. At school, Beatrice was on a cooking team with her 2 best friends, Millie and Sarah. To make their giant rhubarb muffins, they needed 4 eggs. Beatrice went to the refrigerator and carefully chose the biggest, eggiest eggs she could find. But on the way back, her legs slipped out from under her. The eggs went flying, and Beatrice was about to make her first mistake, but she didn't. That was close, thought Beatrice. And for the rest of the day, Beatrice could not stop thinking about her almost mistake. On her way home from school, Beatrice watched Millie and Sarah ice skating in the park. Come join us, said Millie. It's fun, said Sarah. Beatrice watched them slip and slide on the frozen pond. Millie and Sarah laughed as they wobbled on the ice. No thanks, said Beatrice. At supper, Beatrice barely touched her food. Everything all right, kiddo? Asked her father. I'm worried I'll mess up tonight, said Beatrice, and everyone will be watching. Worry, you don't make mistakes, he said with a smile. Beatrice tried to smile too. After supper, Beatrice got ready for the talent show. First, she woke Humbert from his nap. And next, she got the salt shaker from the kitchen table. And finally, she filled a balloon with water. The school auditorium was packed, and Beatrice felt her stomach jumping around inside her. Beatrice waited for her juggling music to begin. That's her! That's the girl who never makes mistakes, said a woman. Oh, we know she'll be perfect, said a man. And when the music started, she tossed Humbert into the air, and next she added the salt shaker and finally the water balloon. Beatrice didn't miss a beat, and the crowd clapped with delight, but Beatrice noticed something odd about the salt shaker. The specks falling out of it were not white. Achoo! Humbert was so surprised by his sneeze that he grabbed the water balloon with his claws. Humbert, pieces of water balloon, and the pepper rained down on top of Beatrice, and for the first time in as long as anyone could remember, Beatrice made a mistake, and it was a big one. The music stopped. Beatrice didn't know what to do. Cry? Run off the stage? The crowd sat stunned. They couldn't believe that the girl who never makes mistakes made a mistake. Beatrice looked up at Humbert. He looked back at her. His hamster fur was soaked and speckled with bits of balloon. And Beatrice let out a giggle. And the giggle grew into a chuckle, and the chuckle became a laugh. And the people in the crowd looked at each other and then back at Beatrice, and they began to giggle and then chuckle and then finally roar with laughter. Beatrice and the audience laughed until they couldn't remember why they were laughing. And that night, Beatrice slept better than she ever had. In the morning, no fans greeted Beatrice. And when she got dressed, Beatrice, for no reason at all, put on a polka dot sock on one foot and a plaid sock on the other. Beatrice and Carl made sandwiches. This time they put the peanut butter and jelly on the outside. It's total chaos. They called it an inside-out PB&J. And lunch was messy and delicious. Later, Beatrice found Millie and Sarah skating in the park. They fell a lot and laughed. And now people no longer call her the girl who never makes mistakes. They just call her Beatrice. And that is the end of our story. If you would please rise in body or in spirit. Our next hymn is, thank you, Shine On Me, which is on a video here. So please rise, and the children are dismissed to their classroom.
Hello, UU family. I'm going to sing a song with you called Shine on Me. It's an amazing spiritual that anybody can sing. And in these days when the things that we're dealing with, the feeling separate and all of that, and things seem so hard, this is one of those songs that you just throw your head back, put it in your medicine kit. All you have to do is ask. And here's how it goes. Shine on me, oh shine on me. Let the light from the lighthouse shine on me, oh shine on me, yes, shine on me. Let the light from the lighthouse shine on me. Lift me up, oh, lift me up. Let the light from the lighthouse lift me up, oh, lift me up, yes, lift me up. Let the light from the lighthouse lift me up, oh, hold me close, yes, hold me close. Let the light from the lighthouse hold me close, yes, hold me close, oh, hold me close. Let the light from the lighthouse please hold me close, Oh, shine on me, shine on me. Yes, shine on me. Let the light from the lighthouse shine on me. Oh, shine on me. Yes, shine on me. Let the light from the lighthouse shine on me.
A central part in our services each week is the time when we join to share the joys and sorrows in our lives with our larger community. When we share the things that make us happy, it magnifies that happiness. When we share the things that are burdening us, it lessens that load just a little bit. We know that each of us brings into this room those larger experiences, and sharing them helps us connect with each other. Now, if you are on the live stream and wish to add a joy or sorrow, please do so. There is a short delay of several seconds between things appearing in the live stream and then me seeing them, but I will include those of you that are watching us remotely as well. Let's start with sorrows. Anyone who is carrying with them a heaviness today, would you please speak or type your name or the name of the person that you are thinking of with sorrow today? Drain Wilski. Kara. Jean. Rita and Aaron. Logan. Vic. From the live stream, we also have concern for niece Emily. And Lisa. Sorrows, of course, are heavy and would be unbearable but for the fact that life is also entwined with joy. Whether you are typing in the live stream or sharing here in this space with your voice, please share your name or the name of one that you are thinking of with joy, and I will share with you one that I got by email before today's service. Mark Weddleton's daughter, Julia, graduated from Lincoln High yesterday, and I know we had many graduates in the city, so I will lift up in joy Julia Abraham as well as other graduates. Other joys that you bring today.
Ivy Jurgis.
Ivy Jurgis. Owen. A new infant in our midst. A very teeny, very, very pretty little infant. Liam and Ducky. Grandson Alex will be graduating from Lincoln Southwest today. I'll add my own joy. I don't know how many of you are in the same position that I have been, that it's been difficult to acclimate to leaving the house again. So I'm going to add as my joy my coworker and friend Molly Clarkson for getting me to leave the house and go back to dance classes at Jazzercise with her. We know that there are always joys and sorrows not yet able to be spoken, but still deeply felt. Let us hold a moment of silence for everything that is unspoken but is felt by us in community. thank you for your presence. One of the joys that we have in this community is people who volunteer to do the hard stuff. Barbara Pearson remains a joy every day, and today she's our presentation on the clusters connections, which highlights a different aspect of the church's work. She'll be speaking today about the facilities cluster.
Hello, everybody. Is it on? Okay. Just wanted to say, a decision was made, passive tense, decision was made to have the facility, or have each cluster of the church's organization come and explain themselves so that you all are real clear about what we do. The stuff that make... Get closer? Okay. Is that better? Okay. Where's, okay. There you go. Better. Better? Better. No? Okay. Right there. The facilities cluster covers several important functions in the church, and they include the building committee, the grounds committee, the church cleanup task force, the art gallery committee, and the pantry garden task force. Now, the names of these committees and task forces are probably pretty self-evident, but the building committee takes care of the building, including the structural, electrical, plumbing, heating, cooling, and aesthetic appearance. The grounds committee takes care of the property on which the church sits, including the grass and the trees and the flowers and the terracing and concrete and all that. The church cleanup crew cleans and maintains the entire kitchen and the gallery space that's used for gatherings, meals and food and stuff like that. The art gallery committee arranges and schedules exhibits from a wide range of on a wide range of artwork from local artists. The pantry garden allows the church to model the art of coaxing life and healthy produce out of the soil and helps to feed our own members and members of our community. The function of each of these components of the facilities cluster is to help provide a safe, attractive, and welcoming place in which spiritual exploration can take place. The church's vision is truly our vision, too. The facilities cluster directly personifies the bits of the church's mission that refer to helping hands and people who show up. I want you to understand that each of these committees and task forces carries out the hands-on work that of the most fundamental kind. We live out our values in the most literal way, sometimes actually getting our hands dirty. The work is daily, ongoing maintenance and planning for the future. Now, I'm not supposed to be up here to ask for, during this testimonial, to ask people to join in that work, but I can't resist. If you are interested, if your skill set and your interests run to the practical and visible and measurable, please let me know. Thank you.
You see what I mean, that she's a joy, and it dawns on me I could have combined my new renewed interest in dance with the facilities cluster by doing interpretive dance while Barbara was talking. Maybe the next clusters. Hopefully you're feeling grateful that you don't have to watch me do interpretive dance, and maybe that will make you feel particularly generous about the upcoming offering. Each week we take up a collection to support the work of this church and our partners in the community. We do this because just as we are all gaining and growing from our participation in the community, we also all give back through our time, our talent, and our treasure. As the next music begins, the ushers will pass our offering plates. You can also give by texting UC Lincoln and the amount to the number 73256. The amount, UCL Lincoln, 73256. The offering and the music will now be gratefully received. We are so lucky today as we talk about creativity in the sermon to have the gifts of Tetsuya Nishiyama with us today. So thank you so much for being here. Our next reading is a poem by Wendell Berry, who is also from Kentucky, like our presenter, Bob. This poem is called How to Be a Poet and begins with a parenthetical to remind myself. How to be a poet, to remind myself. Make a place to sit down. Sit down. Be quiet. You must depend upon affection, reading, knowledge, skill, more of each than you have, inspiration, work, growing older, patience, for patience joins time to eternity. Any readers who like your poems doubt their judgment. Breathe with unconditional breath the unconditioned air. Shun electric wire. Communicate slowly. Live a three-dimensional life. Stay away from screens. Stay away from anything that obscures the place it is in. There are no unsacred places. There are only sacred places and desecrated places. Accept what comes from silence. Make the best you can of it. Of the little words that come out of the silence, like prayers prayed back to the one who prays, make a poem that does not disturb the silence from which it came.
Good morning again. It is with great joy that I close out our month on creativity. We are all born creative, that much is true. Small children are some of the most creative people on the planet. Their ability to conjure worlds and parse fragments of the language that they barely know and understand is as imaginative as it is adorable. One of my favorite creative uses of language is from my middle son, Dave, when he was about 4 or 5. He was watching his older brother play a bowling video game, and he rolled a strike, and Dave excitedly proclaimed it a bowl in one. At some point in our lives, though, people much older and presumably wiser, though I dispute this notion, begin stuffing us into metaphorical straitjackets that deny our creativity. Words like practical, mature, logical, financial viability, and the dreaded grow up. It's that age-old joke of a kid goes to his dad and says, "Dad, I want to be a musician when I grow up." And he says, "You'll have to choose." It's presented to us that the path to adulthood, to maturity, to happiness is not a creative one, but rather a cold, robotic shuffling toward obedience and service. As the church's resident creative, I reject this idea that creativity is a perk or a bonus to something more valid. That it might be nice if you can be creative in your day-to-day, but it doesn't feed you, and if it doesn't serve the beast of capitalism, it's a childish want. Cake for breakfast and all that. I look around and I see the same problems that we all do, and I am aghast that a not insignificant portion of the population believes the joy of creative artistic pursuits might need to be sacrificed in the name of commerce and a mature society. To put it bluntly, they are trying to take away the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. I struggled with how to present this message today on what happens when you decide a creative passion will be the focus of your existence. Mark Twain said the 2 most important days of your life are the day you're born and the day that you find out why. And if, like me, your why is the dogged hunt for a creative life, there is no shortage of people willing to remind you how careless and stupid you are for rejecting the soulless drudgery of capitalism. I struggled, past tense, on how to show what happens when you pursue a life of creativity. But then, John McWhorter of the New York Times wrote one of the most asinine music articles I've ever read and wrapped everything else in a nice bow for me. McWhorter's article is titled, "Is Musicology Racist?" And in it, he disputes the writing of Dr. Philip Ewell, whose book on music theory and making music more welcoming for everyone talks about how the centering of white, Eurocentric music in our music theory curriculums has overshadowed and devalued many other forms of music making. In short, McWhorter accuses Ewell of falling prey to the woke mind virus by making everything about race. But from where does John McWhorter, writing in the paper of record, derive the authority to discuss a text on music? Allow me to read from the second paragraph of his article, where he explains, "I am not a musicologist by training, but music is something I have paid close attention to my whole life, to the extent that I teach a course on music history at Columbia." John McWhorter is a linguist. Not a very good one either, which I'll get to. I don't even know where to begin with this maddening paragraph. Firstly, for a linguist, John McWhorter is bad at words. Dr. Philip Ewell is a highly esteemed music theorist. Note that the title of his article asks if musicology is racist. Music theory and musicology are two separate disciplines. When called out about this on social media, McWhorter hand-waved it away as, quote, semantics. So here's a linguist telling you the words about music do not matter. Secondly, since when does paying close attention to music your whole life in any way qualify you to teach music? Here is one of our prestigious post-secondary institutions, where one would expect the education in all departments, including music, to be of the highest quality. Yet, even at Columbia, linguists teach their music courses. Come on, Columbia. I still haven't forgiven you for kicking the Ghostbusters out of the science department, and now this. And here lies the crux of my homily today. A music theorist of astounding credentials, Dr. Philip Ewell was educated at Yale, authors a text on his field of study and some of the problems therein, and a linguist with the New York Times can say, nah. This is how we treat creatives, particularly musicians. If you followed any of the writer's strike going on right now, one of their rallying cries is, we don't want to end up like the musicians. McWhorter is emblematic of a common issue that every musician I have ever known runs into. Because people have experienced music on the same emotional level as the rest of us, they believe this grants them the authority to stand next to gifted theorists like Philip Ewell and act as though their opinions about music are as significant as work done in the field. McWhorter might be creative, but he is not a creative, and the difference is what I'm here to talk about. First, I want to be clear, we're all creative, and that creativity should be explored and shared. Resist the idea that your creative endeavors must be of a certain quality or can be successfully monetized. I'm of the belief that any happy and fulfilled existence must abound with creativity. You do not have to write top 10 hits to make music, and you don't have to sell millions of copies to write a novel. We exercise without believing the Olympics are in our future. If we can do that for our bodies, we can do it for our minds. Second, creativity does not mean acting without limits, boundaries, or guidelines. Too often, we assume the best ideas come from cutting loose the reins of our mind, and then we resist anything that pushes back against what blooms from this wide open field. This is where being a creative starts to diverge from the rest of the creative world. Lastly, in my experience, the three things that separate a creative from the rest are obsession, scrutiny, and openness. From here on, I'll talk exclusively about my experiences as a musician, because that's what I know. But let's talk about the first, obsession. It's well-worn advice to any young person thinking about choosing music as a career path to say to them, if you see yourself doing anything else, do that. If you can put it away, tuck it in a little box, and bring it out later, it's not the career for you, and I envy you. A few years back, I was giving a master class to a group of high schoolers. One of them asked me, why did you choose music? And I couldn't really form a coherent answer for a few seconds. But here's what I said in a nutshell. I didn't choose. There was no choice. From the time I picked up a saxophone to this very living, breathing moment, I have thought nothing about anything but music at all times. I could not see myself doing anything else or being anyone else. When Ashley was pregnant with our oldest, I was not quite through school, and I had taken some time off to get back on track. I was working in a call center, and if you've done that work, you know that's the belly of the beast in terms of capitalism. I was trying to make some cash, and now suddenly I'm going to be a father. So I had to look at reality, and I insisted on going back to school for some BS degree like MBA, or no offense to any MBAs in here, but Ashley refused. She wisely told me that a happy dad is more important. But I disagreed. One night in the parking lot of that call center, I played it out in my mind. I thought about this future child that I had not met yet, saying, wow, Dad, it was really cool that you used to play the saxophone. And at that thought, I wept. It was an undeniable part of me. I couldn't just lop it off like a limb. Obsession is one word for it. I can tell you that music runs through my veins like blood, and it's just as vital and sustaining. The second is scrutiny. Several years ago, I was working with a guest coming in on a project. This is a person who was going to be teaching a master class and leading groups of people in learning and performing music. We had a meeting, and I asked them what key the songs they were going to be doing would be in. And the response was, I don't really think in terms of keys. Well, that was going to be a problem, because the other musicians were certainly going to be thinking in terms of keys. Needless to say, it was downhill from there. The teaching was abysmal, the master class was a demonstration in vanity, and all guidelines about the performance were ignored. The person presented themselves as a musician of the highest order, and what they really were was a charlatan. Music is hard. The more you pursue it, the harder it gets. I went to music school with a lot of people who had to drop out or change majors. There's no shame in that. But the appeal of looking like you know what you're doing is too much for some people to pass up. It's the age-old question, do you want to make music or do you want to be seen making music? This person wanted to be seen, and they had no credentials upon which their enormous delusions about music could rest. This is where scrutiny comes in. I asked before, from where does John McWhorter derive his authority? That is a legitimate question. It's also legitimate to point the thumb as well as the fingers. From where do I, Bob Fusen, derive the authority to call John McWhorter out for being a terrible, terrible linguist? I'll tell you. Throughout my creative life, I have been scrutinized, judged, graded, and presented over and over and over and over and over again. I have received the harshest criticisms, suffered brutal failures, and bore tremendous consequences for my pursuit of art. From where is my authority derived? From the 5 recitals that I gave as part of my graduate work, where a committee of some of the finest minds anywhere, not just at the University of Nebraska, looked at everything I did and everything I said and everything I wrote and everything I played with a fine-tooth comb and chiseled away at it until I was molded and refined. It is harsh, it is brutal, and it is necessary to be a creative. I know it looks very cool to see me standing up there blowing away, or to see Julie belting out a song with that incredible voice of hers. That's not ad-libbed, it's in here, I promise. But you don't get to skip the line and stand next to us just because it looks cool and you like it. We do that because we went through the ringer to be able to do that. And finally, openness. Music is a melding of the technical and the mystical. Charlie Parker said, you learn everything you can, then you get up on stage and forget it and just play. Lou Marini of the Blues Brothers Band put it more succinctly to me. He said, the thinking brain is too slow to play music. It is very difficult to do something like maintain the technical function of a saxophone while contemplating the implications conjured up by the harmony and their function, at the same time being open to how that saxophone sounds and what feelings might be conjured up by the things you're playing. The folks in the A Street Band are very good at the mystical. Music for them exists in the ether, off the page. And that's great. It's not wrong. The music that they make is beautiful, and I'm very proud of it. When the technical stuff is a problem, that's what I'm there for. I've worked with many musicians, like the aforementioned guest, who have only the technical. They've gotten adept at 1 or 2 specific things, and their mind is not open to anything else. They can't adapt. Being a creative means being open to all the tools available, having knowledge to use them, and the restraint not to overuse them. In short, a creative is a person in service to something higher than themselves at all times, 24/7, to the point of risking even physical and financial health, subjecting themselves to ego-bruising scrutiny, so that they might get to a higher plane of understanding and serve the art that they love. Back to McWhorter and those like him. Why do so many people feel such an entitlement regarding the subject of music, regardless of their skill level or training? As previously mentioned, emotions play a huge role. Studies have shown that laypersons and Juilliard-trained musicians have the same brain activity when listening to a Beethoven symphony. That much unites us. We all felt what was happening, and isn't that all you need in terms of understanding? Possibly, but that's not the same thing as expertise. But if I'm being completely honest, and based on my very real lived experiences, even in this building, at some level it's an affront. No one is supposed to choose this, not for a living. Capitalism's most damning offense is the devaluation of the humanities and the way it treats the arts. The stigmas are outrageous. Everyone told me if I became a musician, I would starve. I ask you, the humble congregants of the Unitarian Church of Lincoln, how starved do I look? Because what I chose all those years ago, if it was a choice, was happiness. In many ways, this is a sick culture, and when I was younger a lad, the things I was exposed to told me I would hate my wife. Marriage is a sham. You should hate your job. And people who work in the arts are poor, mentally unstable weirdos. Do you ever wonder why, when budget cuts hit schools, the arts are the first to go? Does it ever strike you as curious that they're going after books and drag queens? Do you think they'll stop at those forms of self-expression? Do you know how many artists and songs have been banned from radio? Don't you find it odd, I find it infuriating, that the loudest talking point for keeping music in schools is how much it will benefit you in other areas like STEM, as if music is not worth the pursuit on its own. It's the same reason why when you think of a musician, you conjure one of two images: a broke, grungy person playing for nickels in rundown clubs, or arena-filling giants. There's a whole ecosystem of music professionals out there who are neither dead broke nor world famous, but you don't hear about that. Why is that? Why do we turn our children so far away from pursuing a creative life in the pursuit of money? And I'll tell you why. Because they're among the least valued things in society. For us as human beings with souls, they are the most valuable, and that's why they take it out of schools. Art enriches the soul and the mind, and people with hearty souls and sound minds are of little use in a capitalist society. Art humanizes us. It makes us more likely to love one another instead of have these divisions, and thus it's not valued. Being creative means knowing these things and knowing that the world is backwards. It means standing in the face of an entire apparatus designed to devalue your very existence and saying, no. I might not make millions directing A Street, but I have a band full of people in the latter third of their lives having some of the best times they've ever had. They found purpose and love and something beyond consumerism. It would be tempting to say, I'm glad we here at the Unitarian Church of Lincoln are more evolved and have moved beyond. But a word of caution. I was going to end this homily with a list of the things that have been said to me in my tenure here by people here, things to this day that amaze and shock me. But I'm not going to do that, because I've come to understand the harsh things that have been said to me and many other countless creatives represent a societal illness that people get caught up in. It's very difficult to rage against the machine, and I probably expect too much of people. But I will ask this of you. Take a beat and think about what you've been told and what you've been taught about the arts. Think about what society tells you about art. How things like AI are attempting to crowd out the real living humans who do this, and why people have such animus and say such degrading things about art and its artists. Be creative. Be creative for you and you alone. Find a creative to help you and support the arts. And finally, go in peace. Thank you. Our last hymn is a well-worn classic, Love Will Guide Us, which will be on video. Our closing words today come from the great sage and oracle and saxophonist Leroy Moore, a personal hero of mine. If you've had any conversations with me, you probably know that. These were caught on tape during a studio session where he was working with a young band, and he's talking to them about music. He says, "You know, there are reasons for that. There are reasons that these things happen, these rules of rhythm and harmony and melody. But they're not really rules. There are no hard and fast rules in music because they have all taken, basically, they're just observances of the way people have generally played things and what usually, and the great composers and music of the time. And they basically are tendencies of what comes next. In other words, in melody, this note usually goes to these notes or these notes. Don't have to, but they generally do. And people's ears are already programmed to these rules, basically, just through generations of the way music has been. So you hit on all of these aspects in the music. And when you have more than one of these kinds of things happening at the same time, you start getting a saturation of musical events. And you know, you get enough of that happening and it's just like apple pie. It is like everything about it just seems so familiar and so perfect and so there. But then the trick, though, is you can't just by applying these rules to every element, even if you have the skill to do that, you can't just do it all the time because then it gets boring. Because a lot of times, what's as important as what you play is what you don't play. So that space is very powerful, because you keep wanting to hear something else, but you don't. But then that's not what you really want to hear, but you want to hear it, but it's cool, man, it's cool. And some cats study like this. That is why when you go to the conservatory, they break it down into rules, like parallel fifths and parallel octaves. But you know, you can play anything you want. No, it's true. If you like it, then it is fine. What you like is just as valid as anything else. Don't let anybody tell you what you like, for real. If it is true, don't be afraid.
Take that spirit of beauty and creativity with you and go in peace.